Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan for another Inside the Birds presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It's the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. Here we go, Adam. We have exactly one training camp practice to discuss in this podcast as the Eagles opened up their camp on Wednesday, and it was exciting for everybody who loves the return of football and whoever for this nostalgia, right? You like when the first day of training, it sort of is that like you turn the page toward football season.
So I'm so old. I remember when Andy Reid first became head coach. My first year of it was Andy's first year, 99, right? Was it Andy 99?
98, wasn't it? 90 higher.
99.
Yeah, 99.
Yeah, it was Ray Rhodes
Right.
Ray Rhodes became the Packers head coach. And the Ron Roll said he couldn't understand what the Eagles were thinking when they fired Ray Rhodes. Well, he learned. It didn't work
Yeah.
out. But it worked out well for the Eagles when they hired Andy in 99. So here's what I remember. And the reason why you mentioned showing up the first day of practice, my big thing was they pretty much, because the rules have changed now, you cannot go in pads the first day or hit the first day, even if you're a team there are very few teams that hit at all. But I would love to be there the first day that they hit. Like if I knew the Eagles were the first day not going to hit, or wouldn't be physical, I wasn't going because the practices are so different now. It just like the physicality of practices when you and I were covering the league very early in our careers was so different.
Mm-hmm.
So this one, and this leads into our point, because talking to Jeff Miller from the NFL, who's the head of health and safety, who's a great guy. I enjoy talking to him. He's great with me with injuries and explaining why they do certain things at training camp. What Jeff said was, and why they have the acclimation period or the ramp up period. Every year he gives a talk at the NFL owners meetings for the media, sometimes the combine, and generally the owners meetings, and he updates. I always ask him the same stuff. Okay, what's the big injury this year? How are ACL injuries? What's a big soft tissue injury? And then I always ask him what anything new for training camp. He goes, boy, the acclimation period's working well. I go, what do you mean? It said, a majority of the lower body injuries, particularly soft tissue, happen in the first week.
Right.
Based on the data. I'm like, oh, I guess it kind of makes sense. He goes, why? Because players generally, because they're working out on their own, hopefully, and it's a good thing, but they're not working out at the complex. So when you've been away for 6 weeks, and the first 3 or 4 days, you need to get your body right. Like, you got to adjust your body.
Mm-hmm.
And they noticed, and by the way, they're wearing the tracking. They wear the tracking stuff too. They could see, how fast they're running, and you take the fluid levels for, you get the physical the day before practice, and but they're checking weights, by the way, every day. They check weights every day. But the big thing Jeff said was, man, you just can't be away for 6 weeks and the first day go 2 hours, 2.5 hours, or practice really hard. Like, you can't do that.
Right.
So all the teams have to do now. Not every team's doing 5 days. Some teams do 3 days. Like Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh are super old school. Like, they're like 3 days in, 4 days in. As soon as they can wear pads, they're wearing pads like that. They're old school, but Eagles, they're different. They're very, 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 they ease in, man. And again, they're not going to hit here for sure. They don't hit in Philly.
Yeah. I mean, to your point with Andy, it was players report is usually the last day of rookie only camp, right? The players will report the same day. The next day would be the conditioning test. The next day would be the first practice where it would be light. Then I think there'd be a day off. And then the very next day, the pads would come out. And when they came out, they came out like thunder, like that. And to your point, it would be like 2 days later that there would be 5 guys, 6 guys working with Rick Burkholder.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, right?
Yeah.
Right now, I know when the pads come out, like what day, but I don't know when the hitting begins. I feel like the pads come out and it's like, well, you're still not tackling on the ground. You're thud maybe, right? And then a day or two later, you're back out of the pads. It's a completely different world.
But when Andy was doing it, and I don't know, in Kansas City, I'd heard they tackle, but so Harbaugh tackles in goal line. I know they tackle in goal line, but the Eagles have their only one joint practice this year at New England. We'll see what Gerard Mayo wants to do. But man, there's nothing like when they're hitting. I mean, to me, that's the signal. I know I'm in training camp. And a lot of teams hit when I first started covering the league. Now, very few do. And by the way, when they do, it's like for 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and that's it. So it's pretty cool because you can hear the pads pop. Man, when you hear that noise, it's
Oh
football.
God. It
On.
sounds like a locomotive, right? Like what I mean, I'm thinking going back to my first days on the beat, going up to Lehigh, and the pads are out first time, and Brian Dawkins is coming chasing somebody toward the sideline, right? And even though it's training camp, if that ball carrier is still inbounds, Dawkins is going "Pop," right before he gets out of
Mhm.
bounds. And it's like that's training camp. And for a reporter or even a fan in the first, few rows to be able to hear that is like a different world, man. It was just unbelievable. Some of the greatest memories I have are just watching padded practices at Lehigh and really watching the guys. You really, if you don't already respect NFL football players
Uh,
for the grind and the punishment, you get a whole new level of it just watching from the side. It really is amazing.
and they had 2 days back then, but the 2 days were different. They were okay, regular practice in the morning and special teams in the afternoon because it
Yeah.
used to be real 2 days. In fact, I was playing golf last week with Scott Fitzke for people who went to Penn State or Eagles fans. Scott was telling me they actually had 3 days
Oh my God.
because he played for Vermeil. It's crazy. He played for Dick Vermeil, Joe Paterno, Don Coryell, and Jim Mora because he played for the
That's
Stars.
wow. That's a pretty good company right
Crazy.
there.
Yeah,
Nice.
he's a great guy. Really enjoyed. I met Scott last year, but anyway, Scott was talking about what it was like to deal with that stuff. He goes, "It's just that." And Harold Carmichael's told me that. I've talked to Harold about it, and Mike Quick's talked about it. It's crazy. Now you get these are like Camp Cupcake now with these kids, you know?
Country club. Yeah.
Yeah, and you talked about the thud. The thud for people don't know is like let's say it's a running back. You can't take him to the ground, but you give a shoulder.
Yeah.
You give a push.
Yeah.
What else do
It's
you
I would just say it's contact without full tackling to the ground.
right? You can't take him to the ground, but you
Right.
see an elbow, and
Right.
then it's really funny though because when a guy's too aggressive, like let's say it's a safety and then the receiver, like you were talking about B-Doc, but let's say it's in today's NFL, like the guy will go, and then the receiver will get up like, man, what are you doing? Why are you pushing me out of bounds like that
Right.
so hard?
Right. Thud is actually the cause of more fights than tackling to the ground because tackling to the ground, there's the expectation you're going to get tackled, you're going to get
Right,
hit.
right.
Thud leaves a lot of subjectivity. Hey, you're not supposed to hit me that hard. You're not supposed to
That's
stick
it,
your
right?
head, right?
Exactly.
Like so, you see
Funny.
way more chirping going on during thud than you would when the tackling to the ground was happening.
Right. So, look, okay. So hey, I was happy that they actually practiced an hour and 10. I was shocked. I was figured it'd be 47 minutes.
Right.
I think the shortest one in Sirianni's, I have to look at my notes. I think it was like 47 or 44
Oh, it
minutes.
was like year one, first one. I was like 45. Wait, you guys were just stretching
Well,
25 minutes ago. What's
well,
going
I think either you were there or I called you. I said, "You're not going to believe this,"
Yeah.
but and I remember your reaction was just like, "Wait, what?" I go,
Yeah.
"Yeah, it's just
Yes.
crazy."
And then I went to next practice and I was like,
And I
I
called
called you.
you.
And I'm like, wait a minute, you were right.
Well, no, I actually called. I don't think I went to that one. I think I called you. Said, "Hey, how long was it?" And
Yeah.
you go, "You're not going to believe this."
Yeah.
So this is the acclimation period. So it's pretty light. It's kind of like OTAs, but you can be physical. Where in OTAs you really can't. It's kind of like a line dance for the offensive lineman. But anyway, so then let's get to the injury part.
Yeah. But
Uh,
before we do
yeah.
that, so we'll talk about injuries.
Okay.
There's only one practice, so we'll give everyone a little bit of an update on what happened day one. And then we're gonna end this podcast with a portion of our Patreon interview that we did with former Eagles quarterbacks coach John DeFilippo. He appears regularly for our Patreon members, but he did an amazing job of explaining how training camp works, the purpose, the approach, how things are evaluated. And we thought with really just one practice here to talk about, but
Yeah.
a whole, slew of them ahead of us to help educate everybody on what coaches are looking for on a day-to-day basis and how it's planned out and how it's scripted from day one to the end. So we're going to end the podcast with a portion of that interview. And A, because it's educational for everybody, and B, just to give our listeners who are not Patreon members an understanding of how great the content is as we work toward our August 1st relaunch. That's when the new tiers that I mentioned in the last podcast will be available. John is a great friend of the show, and he's come on many times, and he's just one of the many reasons that our Patreon community just gets just gets content you can't get anywhere else as far as Eagles coverage.
Just want to add this and major kudos. And John also gave his compliments to the questions we got. Kind of like 7 or 8. In fact, I think it pretty much dominated the questions,
Yeah.
dominated from our members, our chalk talk with John. And then he and I talked after. He goes, "Man, these people are really smart." And I said, "That's what we're after, get smart Eagles fans." So
That's right.
we appreciate that. So yeah, it was great. We learned a lot. This is one of the most educational chalk talks we've had with anyone we've ever talked to since we started doing this. So we appreciate that. And inside the patreon.com/inside the birds to become a member.
Yeah, later in the pod, I'll go through those tiers once again, and
Yeah.
also a special discount that you can get if you sign up. For now, we'll just take a quick break to hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, the big news for the first day of camp, it is every year, is who's practicing and who isn't. And we have like all 3 layers here. We got PUP, NFI, and just day to day. So Adam, I'll let you kind of explain, because I know a lot of people get confused still on the difference in protocol and even terminology of physically unable to perform compared to non-football injury or non-football illness compared to anything else.
All right, let's go to active NFI, non-football injury. So basically what that is, it's a player, in this case, it's any player on any team that got hurt away from the complex. Now, if these players stay on this list, by the way, they're on active NFI, so they could come off tomorrow. If the Eagles think they're ready to come off tomorrow, well, today's Thursday, but they don't practice Friday. They practice twice and have a day off. You got to love
Hey,
that.
you can still come off on an off day. That's fine.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, yeah, you can come off at any time now. So now if they put them on reserve NFI to start training camp, they're out for the season. Ryan Ramczyk, because of that severe knee injury he's out for the season. But they think Dennis Allen, their head coach of the Saints, thinks he'll be available next season. But so anyway, let's get back to this. So non-football injury, or it's, as you said, non-football illness. Let's say a guy got COVID, or he got a bad virus, or an unfortunate brain injury, so something you go on what's called non-football illness. And again, you could come off anytime if the player's feeling well. Now, if it's bad enough that they're going to stay on through the end of training camp in the preseason, and they're not ready week 1, they go what's called reserve non-football injury. You have to miss the first 4 games. It used to be 6 games. Thankfully, over the last 3 or 4 years, the NFL and NFLPA agreed to lower it, because here's the problem. There were players sometimes ready after 4 weeks, but they couldn't come back.
Right.
The rule's so stupidly restrictive. So thankfully, the NFL has re-examined it, and now it's 4 games instead of 6. If you're on reserve, if they go from active to reserve. PUP is, as you mentioned, physically unable to perform. C.N.E. Brown, as we knew the whole offseason, would be on that. He's on it because of the ACL. Now, we believe, what we hear, he should be able to practice sometime by the end of August. We don't have any. The Eagles are not putting a time frame on it because it's ACL reconstruction. But there's definitely hope that he could be ready week 1. But until they see him practice, whenever that may be, they're not going to know for sure. And we know players in recent years come back earlier from ACL injuries, but that doesn't mean they'll be ready to go week 1 and play a ton of snaps. So I know talking to the Jets when they were bringing back Breece Hall, they knew he'd be available early in the season, but they were not going to let him have a lot of carries because he's a running back. He got to run. C.D. Brown, in this case, has got to run. He's a safety. He's not like a lineman who's got to play in space. So he's got to be able to run, cut, stop, and start. And that's why, as we were talking about in our Patreon chat on Wednesday night, once they come off active PUP or NFI, they can't go back on. You better be absolutely sure they're ready to go.
Right.
And as you've seen in the rehab, all the teams call it the rehab area. You'll see the players they're like they might be running sprints, or they're They got like a rubber band. They got some kind of band on their back, and
Yeah.
the trainer's pulling them
Or they're
for
pushing a big tire, flipping a tire
that too.
over the
Yeah,
field
exactly.
100 times back and forth.
It's so funny you mentioned that because you just made me think of something. So when Jeff Fisher was the Oilers, or the Titans head coach, right? Titans head coach. If the player in pregame warmups was pushing a tire, he wasn't playing that day. I noticed it. The reporters there knew it as well, but I just noticed when my partners and I had a site called footballinjuries.com, we started to notice the trend. Like, this dude's starting at 9 a.m. Eastern for 1 o'clock game. If he's pushing the tire, he ain't playing.
Not happening.
For fantasy, it was great though. So you knew if you had like Eddie George or somebody, or Derek Mason or somebody, they weren't playing. But anyway, getting back to this. So this is what the designations mean. That's pretty much it. And so we'll see Sidney Brown. Hopefully he'll be, like as we said, hopefully at some point in August he'll be on the field, but don't know yet for sure when that'll be. And then the active NFI guys, the guys on non-football injury, were Shaquan Davis, who was with the Saints. He's the guy with the 6'4" guy they want to see. Cooper DeJean, who's going to miss. Now, the Eagles think he could come back by the 3-week mark, but it's a hamstring. You got to see what happens when he practices. But based on their information, they believe he'll be back by 3 weeks. That means he pretty much misses most, if not all, of training camp. That's concerning. And Gottlieb, the undrafted free agent, do you know how to pronounce his last name?
I don't. I believe it was Aydze.
That sounds good. Ayedze. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
yeah, he was So he's one of the three that's on NFI. Gottlieb Aydze. We're gonna get a clarification on that.
Yeah, we'll get it from West.
Give me some time on those guys.
We'll get it on we'll get it at practice day. But so the DNPs are Dickerson with a toe laceration and Brett Toth hamstring. Oh, by the way, so you have to put your designations out at the start of training camp. Once they practice, they can't go on any list unless they're out, unless they're on IR. You don't IR people, you just don't do it unless you think the guy can't play the season. As I was saying in the chat, like, if the guy can come back week 15, don't put him on IR now. Don't put him on IR. You just don't see that. If the guy could come back for the playoffs. Now, what I've seen some teams do is they'll put him on IR and then they'll reach an injury settlement down the road. But you don't really want to do that if you don't have to. And that's pretty much it for the injuries. So, and no one that we know of got hurt, but we'll see later today if anyone is on the Eagles injury list of not practicing today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty encouraging because we've seen a couple of times after the fitness test that 6 or 7 guys either were really banged up or some didn't pass the test, although they always feel like a way of talking around that. But, for only 2 guys, like major, those guys to be out, Dickerson and Toth is not that bad.
All right. So I believe guys who now Sirianni did say they all passed the conditioning test.
Yeah.
But Belichick was famous for, like, they would start training camp with like 10 guys on PUP. And then once they pass the conditioning test, then they're able to practice. It's kind of comical. That was kind of a running joke with the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Guess who wouldn't pass their conditioning test? I have to ask Brian Hoyer that. We should get Brian Hoyer on one of our shows.
Sure.
I'm very curious. Do you know when, and just whether it's Andy or Chip Kelly or any of the Eagles and Peterson, do you know what? I know they have to do gases of some sort. Anything else, for this?
Yeah. Yes. Because it varies by your position.
Oh,
I used to have I should have anticipated that.
I'm sorry. We'll get it.
No, it's I used to have a notebook that told me what the standard was for each position. Now you have to run a certain number of laps, back and forth gassers in a certain amount of time to be able to pass. And and that makes sense. You wouldn't want an offensive lineman to have the same time as a wide receiver. Well, you would want an offense. That would be a great offensive lineman.
Would run under 540. But did my eyes? I don't know if you were there, but I'm pretty certain Sirianni had, and I was there because I was laughing. I'm like, I've not seen this before. He had the coaches do some conditioning stuff at the end of the last practice.
I think I heard that. Yeah, I think I remember.
I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I was walking off. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here.
Now, is a young coach who's in better shape, say an Aaron Moorhead or Jamal Singleton, does he have to Does Vic Fangio have to like
Yeah, exactly. I know.
match their times? That would be kind of messed
I
up.
I have no idea. Can you imagine? But you know what? You know what's crazy? Scott Fitzky told me because Scott was on that was Vic's first job. Vic, I think, was in his late 20s. He said he was basically a low-level assistant. And he's just amazed. He goes, yeah. He goes, man, this guy's now one of the best defense coordinators in whatever decade, for decades.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just kind of cool that Vic theoretically won his career as an Eagle. It's being from there. It's a pretty cool story, but we'll see how it goes. But yes, that is that's the injury stuff for today.
All right, so let's get into a couple of notes. We'll start with the offense, and again, this is just one practice, and we're going to give you stuff that we feel is kind of interesting after one practice, but we're not sitting here making a big to do over what somebody said in a press conference. That's not what we're doing.
Yeah. But I gotta tell you, and we were wrong, but it's not our fault because we only go by what we see and what we're told, what we know. I was fooled. I can't speak for you. I know we talked about it when we were at practice. We were blown away by how many passes DeAndre Swift caught and the backs caught in training camp last year. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it became nothing in the regular season. So
that's
on
fewest
your point.
catches of his career. In
What's
fact,
that?
it became the opposite. It was the fewest catches and receiving.
Right. Swift.
Career.
Right. It was crazy. And I remember Swift running a 9 route. I couldn't believe it, which is just basically a go route. And I was like, well, and he actually fell. I caught on it was a great catch.
Yeah, he caught it.
Wow,
great.
You were there. Yeah, you were there. I'm like, this is crazy. That I mean, one day like they got like 15 checkdowns. Yeah. By the way, folks, checkdowns are in every NFL offense. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
I'm
and
trying
a lot easier to do, by the way, when they're scripted for you in training camp than in an actual game when you want.
Right, an actual game. Well, they're built in. You just
right.
Hot routes and checkdowns are this. They're in every offense. But anyway, so. That's why, like today, or excuse me, on Wednesday, there were screens. Well, yeah, I mean, every offense has screens. Typical plays you see. But now, again, like you said, we're not going to make any definitive or broad statements yet. We're just going to tell you what we see.
Yeah.
We made one broad statement on their offense because we saw it every damn time we went, and it went up not matter. It never happened in the regular season.
Right.
So we'll see. We'll see. By the way, there was motion, and I looked at my notes. There was motion last year in training camp. So. But it's worth mentioning because of what kind of offense Kellen Moore runs. Well, obviously we have to mention.
Of course. No, it's always good when the eyes and ears of yourself or the people who are working for you, right, match what you're hearing. And it stood out to me that Andrew DeCecco wrote in his observations, which he'll be doing every time he's down there on InsideTheBirds.com. He wrote that for a first practice when the offense is typically behind the defense. He wrote that he thought Jalen Hurts looked like he was calm and made good decisions on time, like he wasn't reluctant or hesitant. And that kind of jibes with obviously what we heard about the first day and how the offense looked in camp, Adam.
Yeah, so I could add to that. And our intel is that crisp timing is better. Hurts he processed better, no question. Where the first time he was in the Kellen Moore offense was in OTAs, and hard to do. I mean, you're getting as he said, Jalen said on Wednesday, I got to look up. He said 8 offensive coordinators in 10 years. I got to look this up. I'm just very curious what schemes he played in because I counted 6, but I didn't really do a hard I didn't do a hard search, so I'm very interested. But I believe him; he would know since he's a player.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious.
I've been going back to high school, since
sure. No, we right. Oh yeah. He's
Yeah.
talked about that before. It's not the first time, but I get it. Jason Campbell, we pointed this out. Jason Campbell went through too many coordinators. It's tough, but you got to suck it up, and it's got to be better. So it was really good. This Kellen Moore offense, the word I was told is the spacing was very evident on Wednesday. It's just the timing. I get it. It's day one, so and it's very light practice. It's a little bit more souped up than OTAs because this is training camp. And then, by the way, Hurts look really healthy. I'm going to look for the brace to see if I don't know that he's wearing a sleeve or anything, but man, he looks fluid. That's good to see. I mentioned the screen game, and we'll get the offensive line in a second, but I'm just, and Barkley looks, he's 230. Well, we'll find out I know they weigh him every day. I know talking to the Giants about him, his typical weight is around 230. So we'll see here, what he plays at here. Have you ever heard I don't think anyone had ever had a problem with his weight there.
No, I mean he's like a Superman, right? If
Yeah.
you were gonna draw the perfect looking athlete, Saquon Barkley is that guy. I mean, his legs alone look like they're 80% of the 230.
Yeah, the tree trunk.
Yeah, it's just no, I can't imagine, and I think there wouldn't be any issue about his weight.
Earl Campbell, I have to look this up without looking. I could have sworn when I was growing up that he had 34-inch thighs because he had the biggest thighs I've ever seen. Well, again, I'm a 35, 36 waist. So, okay,
Hmm.
that's here.
Hmm.
So if his is 30, that can't be. I guess it's possible.
Hey, the way people bounced off him, it's possible. It's definitely possible.
Isaiah
That guy
Robertson,
ran.
man.
Yeah.
Yep, that play you're talking about. Remember when the linebacker number 58 for the Rams went? I think he went for a ride. I think that was
Mm,
Campbell.
yeah.
Yeah, but so that was it. That was the again, nothing earth shattering. Too late to talk. Too early to talk about the battles. I mean, we're at least a week out of having a good feel for that. I would say.
Hmm.
Six
Oh,
week.
God, yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. Obviously the Eagles I don't want to say the Eagles are fortunate, but because of Dickerson being out, and remember he missed some OTA practices as well, he had excused absences. They've been able to get a look at Mekhi Becton at guard, probably more than they were anticipating because, you know, Dickerson they're anticipating to be at left guard, and Tyler Steen's going to get the first crack at right guard. But they've had him at left guard, Becton, because they've had an opening there.
Well, now, just on your point, just to show you that maybe this Becton stuff is real guard, they could have put Max Sharping at left guard.
Yeah,
They could have done that. They
could have.
didn't. They didn't do it like that. I'm talking for the first team because Max Sharping is a veteran. He has started games. So they didn't do that. They went with Becton filling in
Right.
again for Dickerson.
Yeah,
So
because you're trying to figure out what you've got there. I mean, you kind of know what Matt Sharping is going to give you
sure.
as a guard. You're trying to figure out, can Mekhi Becton not just maybe be a swing guy? Can he push our guy that we have starting in Tyler Steen? Can he be an even better version of it?
Now when Dickerson's ready to practice with that that lacerated toe, whatever the heck it is, once he's ready, let's see if they let Becton play right guard. I'm just it's just one of the most amazing stories because I did actually talk to someone with the Jets and they were kind of surprised.
Mhm.
Someone who I think people with the Jets are probably keeping an eye on it because they drafted him.
Yes.
I'm very curious to see if he actually does. Well, think of it this way: because Steen never was even given a chance to compete in training camp last year, which is a stunner. If they don't let Becton compete for the right guard job, who else is going to push Steen?
It's a great point. I mean, guys that you really don't know haven't proven. A Darian Kennard, you said Sharping is a veteran. Like you don't want to have to play Max Sharping there. Hennessy hasn't played much guard. It's really
Yeah.
going to have to be either Steen or a guy or Becton if Becton proves he can play it. If not, then like you said, if you get struggles out of both those guys, then you got a problem.
Well, Keegan was back from that minor injury at the end of OTAs.
Yeah, sixth
So
round pick. Okay.
fifth rounder,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, fifth round. Yeah, McMahon
Yeah,
was fifth
but
rounder,
he's a limited athlete.
yeah.
Jack Driscoll, by the way, from what talked to some personnel people around the league, thought they thought that Driscoll's a better prospect than Keegan. Now Keegan had some upper body concerns
Yeah.
long term physically,
Yeah.
so maybe that's why he dropped the
Well,
fifth.
they
But
also like Driscoll was a pretty good athlete who can move. I don't
yeah,
think
he
Keegan
played
is Keegan's like a mauler who's just gonna,
guard,
he's a
right?
Michigan offensive line.
Yeah, I like that. Yep. And by the way, Kennard lined up at right tackle with the second team, and Fred Johnson left, I
Hmm.
believe.
Yeah.
So and Toth didn't work. There, once everybody's healthy, the backup group to me could be pretty good with Hennessy, Fred Johnson. I know they like Sharping. It and then you have we'll see about Dylan McMahon and Keegan. But Hennessy's started a decent amount of games, pretty good athlete. A little smaller. We'll see if Becton could. Becton, I hate to say someone's a lock who's a backup, but I mean, unless he's just doesn't perform well at all, he's going to be on the team.
Yeah.
They're counting on that.
I would think so. At wide receiver, Adam, no surprise that Paris Campbell got, the lion's share of the reps there as the number 3 wide receiver. He did catch a bunch of passes from Jalen Hurts. So it was nice to see that. And I guess Calcaterra and Goddard had a few nice catches too. As obviously the middle of the field is what you're looking at as the biggest jump in the Eagles offense, to be able to use the middle of the field.
Yeah, because Jalen, and it's something he's got to be better with. Part of why Goddard did not get the ball as much as he should have. He had a great training camp, and I remember in 22, he was great, in training camp. So he's got to get the ball more. I've kind of changed my opinion checking into the last couple of months for people who graded Eagles tape for us, and just talking to other teams and stuff that watch the Eagles. They said there were plenty of plays where he didn't get the football. Like like he might have been the first progression, he didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And that speaks to the middle. I don't know what
you remember the first 3 games last year that there was some real timing and just sync issues between Jalen Hurts and Goddard. Remember, there would be throws that were way behind Goddard or not to Goddard. There was one even stole where he was wide open and the trigger was never pulled. There was a disconnect there. And part of that was the entire offensive discombobulation going on with it. But that one started early though. Him and Goddard were not connected. I think Goddard did not have more than 3 catches in a game until week 4 or 5, which you can't have that.
And he's such a matchup. He's such a set athlete. He's long, he's lanky, he could run. We know how good of a blocker. He was a good blocker day 1 when he was drafted in 18, and he didn't block a lot in college. It's just I feel like he's, from a statistical standpoint, I feel like he's underachieved. He should be better than he is. He's that gifted. And I've been looking into this. I'm like, well, what the hell the problem is? Well, it's because he didn't get the ball when he was open. I get it. Brown and Smith need to get the ball more, but the problem is when he's the first progression, he needs to get the football. And we'll see. I'm glad we're talking about this, because this is something we're going to look at. We're going to look more into, because training camp could fool you. We've been fooled. We've been fooled because Goddard's, I mean, he tears training camp up, man. He
does.
Who could cover this guy? Quite frankly.
Yeah. I mean, that's your point. That's the training camp. Sometimes it's by design. It's easier, especially before the pads come out, when you get an hour to throw the ball if you want it, or you're not really afraid of getting hit. So yeah, that Paris Campbell made a couple of catches, and that's really, our philosophically, there was motion, there was spread, which is what we expected there to be. And we'll see. We'll probably have we'll definitely have a lot more once we get a few practices under us.
Right. Well, one of the things that we're looking into is, okay, Naismith is healthy. Are they going to have? Because someone's got. Think of it this way: they're going to be heavy 11 personnel. They're going to be heavy 3 receivers, 1 back, 1 tight end. That's what this offense. That's what Kellen Moore. When he believes in everyone on the roster. This is talking to people who work with him. That's what you're getting. That's what he's always done. Last season, the season got hijacked because of all the injuries with the Chargers, so he couldn't really run the offense like he wanted to. But let's put it this way: if they start off, if their base offense is 11 personnel, Cananiah Smith, he doesn't have to. I'm not push Paris Campbell, but could he rotate with Campbell when they're going 3 wide? Could Anai Smith be over Campbell at certain times? That I'm interested to see, because I get Anai Smith as a rookie, but we've talked to some people who graded his tape for the draft, and apparently he's pretty fascinating, pretty strong guy. He's plays bigger than his listed size, and I think he did weigh 190 at the combine.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned in a past podcast about Kellen Moore, if he has the opportunity to, we'll show you some 10 personnel. We'll show you some real spread 4 wide, 5 wide, and you can see maybe a Devontae Smith, AJ Brown on the outsides with 2 interior receivers, one being Paris Campbell, the other being Anais Smith. If, in your point, Anais really looks good as a pass catcher early on, so there'll be some opportunities for mismatches there.
And he was 190, and this is remember, we talked about this before. This blew me away. He had 21 on the bench, 21 to 225.
Wow, that's pretty good.
This guy's a receiver.
Yeah, compact but strong. I like it.
And that's as much as that Gottlieb guy from Maryland, the Eagles undrafted free agent got. and Tanner Bertolini, I think, was drafted by the Colts, got 21.
Tanner who?
Bertolini. He went to Wisconsin. But I'm just looking. That's unbelievable. unbelievable guy. I mean, he's 5'9", 3/8, Anaya Smith. He's going to be my training camp guy. Every year I have one.
Got it.
Some wind up never making it. I like to root for the guys who are kind of lower on the depth chart, lower on the roster. You know, like
Yep.
I was not on Corey Clement. I don't know about you in 17. I was not on him early enough.
No.
Heard
It was
about
hard
him.
to be because he was so low on the. You come in, you're a rookie free agent. You're not
Right.
gonna have much
He had
time.
like
Yeah.
they had other backs he had to beat out.
Yeah.
But this kid's got a real chance at Smith. We'll be keeping an eye on him.
Absolutely. All right, that'll wrap up the offensive notes. We'll get into the defensive notes in a second. I told you guys I'm going to repeat our great new Patreon relaunch that I mentioned in the last podcast. We've got 3 tiers now for our Patreon members, right? And this is going to start August 1st. That's when you'll be able to sign up for the newest tiers. Tier 1 is the same. It's $8 a month. You still get the extra podcast each month. We call it our Chalk Talk podcast. You're part of our Discord community. Get to chat with Adam Caplan once a week on that. And I'm on it as well. Twice monthly, Ask ITB live stream, and early intel we post it right on the Patreon channel. That's tier 1 for just $4 more, $12 a month overall. Tier 2 members get everything I just mentioned in tier 1, but also early access to all Inside the Birds podcasts with no advertisements. So every ITB podcast and every ITB produced show, could be a Q&A, could be Intel with Greg Cosell, whatever we do, we upload once it's done to the Patreon channel, and we do it without any reads or commercials in it. So that is a huge advantage for being a tier 2 member. And then also we're adding an extra show for tier 2. It's called Ask an Eagle live stream. Every month for the entire year, we're going to have a former Eagles player, coach, or front office member come on, join us in a Zoom chat room, and our members will be invited into the chat room to personally ask questions to our former Eagle. That's the Ask an Eagle live stream on tier 2. And we round it off with tier 3, which means you get everything I just mentioned in tier 1 and tier 2, but you get an extra show with that. And that is our Ask Greg Cosell live stream that we're going to do once a week during the NFL season, where you get invited into our Zoom chat. It's you, it's me and Adam, it's Greg Cosell, and you get to personally ask Greg Cosell your questions. You get to directly interact with Greg. Now, parts of this show will be available on the full platforms later in the week, but only the tier 3 members get to come into the chat room and ask the questions for Greg. So that is a huge benefit there for the $15 tier 3. And I've neglected to mention this last time. I think this is one of the best things that we're offering. If you sign up for a year-long membership for tier 2 or tier 3, we'll give you 15% off the total price. Right? So that's August 1st launch when all 3 tiers will be available. They'll be available at patreon.com/insidethebirds. I think that, and I also forgot to mention, sometimes Adam and I just come up with ideas. We did it this past year, and we're like, oh, this would be good for Patreon. Anything that we formulate, new idea, Andrew DeCecco, for example, he's going to do stuff more for us. We'll throw it on to the platform for our tier 3 members. So you're signing up to get all those things we said, but undoubtedly you will actually get more bonus content if you're a tier 3 member. And that is about as good as we can get right now. And we're continuing to grow that thing. We haven't, as Adam mentioned it earlier in the pod, the questions that our members ask in these in the Ask ITB live streams that we do are just so good. They're so educated, and we really appreciate our growing Patreon community. And we encourage everybody to become a member, because it's very valuable. You will be the most informed Eagles fan that ever lived if you're a Patreon member.
John Flip said to me, he goes, I got to tell you, man, these people are really smart, because the questions were so good. It took up a lot of our chalk talk with him. In fact, he'll be with us periodically throughout the season. We look forward to getting him, and then we're going to have some surprises. We're working on a couple of things which are kind of fascinating. So see what happens.
All right. Again, patreon.com/insidethebirds. Let's get to our defensive notes from the one practice. A big thing we were talking about, Adam, was who's going to come in at what weight. Are they going to be at the right size? Are they? And by the way, we were talking about Mekhi Becton. Becton. People did observe that he went to the puke can a couple of times
Yeah.
in the first practice. So listen, we've said they wanted to see him come in. He did better job of losing weight with the Eagles than he was with the Jets, but they still want to see him slimmer and in better condition, and that's not going to happen overnight. He's been really, really big for most of his life. So
Yeah. So we'll look into what his weight is, but I know he was in the offseason around in the 360s. So
yeah,
heck, in fact, he was over 400, well over, well, not 420, but he was at one point with the Jets, he was over 400, and it looked it. He's can't be that way. Like, it's like one thing for Jordan Mailata to be like 380. Well, he's 6'8", but rocked up.
yeah,
He's a big dude. He's broad. Or Mackay needed to reshape his body, but he's worked on it. Give the guy credit. He's definitely worked on it. But Mackay's had the knee problems. He's missed a lot of time in his career, but he's a really great chance to revive his career. So I'm rooting for the guy. I think it's a cool story. We'll see what happens.
yeah. It's one of my favorite storylines of the summer. Absolutely. But obviously the same on defense. You want to see guys like Josh Sweat come back and be, well conditioned and strong, look strong with the knee. And you want to see Bryce Huff show that he can handle more snaps. And of course, Nolan Smith, another guy that was supposed to put on some weight and get a little bit bigger coming from this year's camp.
Yeah, he definitely did. I think he said he was 245-ish. I think he said that.
Yeah, I remember he said that in OTA. He said, I'm coming in at 245, and we weren't sure if he meant OTAs or
I think he said that on Wednesday. Did he not? Did he talk to the media? He noticeably around, NovaCare, he's pretty rocked up, which is good. This is like, I know the Panthers loved him for the draft, last year. Like they had a late 1, early 2 on him, and that's, he went late 1 to the Eagles, but that was the guy they probably were going to draft. I know they drafted Mingo. It's either Smith or Mingo. So the guy's got ability. Like, he's got ability, and I'm very interested to see who he plays behind, whether it's Sweat or Huff, as part of the edge rusher group. But this is his year to contribute. There's no, like, he didn't get a chance last year, but and Sweaty, we'll see. I mean, he's healthy and everything, but he's got a lot to prove, man. It's a 1-year deal. He knows he's still young though. Did he turn 27 yet? He seems like he should be 30. I know he's really young.
I thought he had turned 27.
He turned it. Yeah. He's only 27 though.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. It feels like he has been playing so long. Yep. And he won't be. It's not like he's close to 28. He's closer to 27 than he is to 28.
Correct. He turned it in March. He turned 27. So he's been in the league since 18.
Crazy. Awesome. So yeah, there's that. And you're right. Nolan Smith did say, he told reporters that he was 245 at training camp. So that's what they wanted him at.
Good.
Up front, we know Moro Ojomo is a guy that we talk about as a potential breakout player, someone who showed something at the end of last year. He did run with the second team on the first day. And it wouldn't surprise, as camp goes on and they start to figure out their 4-man rush lines, I'll be very interested to see if he gets a few opportunities in there, because that's really his thing, having that burst, that upfield burst that 3 techniques give you, and they like it. So we'll see as camp goes on if he gets a few runs with, say, what we would call the first team 4-man rush or the second team 4-man rush.
Or you're talking about situationally. Is there a package where maybe maybe Milton Williams comes out and then Jomo comes in? Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. I'm going to look today, because my training camp guys are on defense. Gabe Hall, number 96, just because there's something in his, like, he's what you want in defense in like a 7 technique or 5 technique, even a 3. He's really long. I mean, he's 6'6", for goodness sake. He looks like he's chiseled to play in the front, but he's got to perform. And there's a reason why he wasn't drafted. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do here. But they got right now they've got eight. They're really, I'm not counting the edge rushers, defensive linemen. They're really not. They're edge rushers. So they only really have 8. And with this humidity, it wasn't even warm on Wednesday, but it was humid, and it's only going to get worse. I'm interested to see what these rotations look like. By the way, does Jalen Carter practice a lot? Or Jordan Davis practice a lot? We know Vic talked about the conditioning of both those guys, which I thought was interesting. And Clint Hurt, the new D-line coach, he talked about it as well, the conditioning stuff. So That's been Jordan Davis's issue, not the weight so much anymore. It's not the problem. It's the conditioning, stamina. We'll keep an eye on it.
There you go. Do you want to, should we talk? Are we allowed to talk about linebackers?
See, here's the thing with linebackers. Okay, let's get to it. They rotated in and out, in and out. You know, Bond and White. I believe White was the Mike and Bond was the Will. Then Dean and Bond came in with a second team. Well, Bond stayed in. Then in 7-on-6, because they did 11-on-11s, 7-on-7s, lots of rotations. White and Dean, 7-on-7s. It's way too early to call. I mean, the only one that seems the smart money on, what do we put Devin White to start? 160, 140
Yeah,
plus
yeah, or I think
minus
he was 140 and
minus 140.
Dean was minus 160 or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, that would be my money, but you know, I'm very interested to see. We've said this now for 7 years. Coaches love when an inside backer can rush. Well, Zach Bond, I know he's never played inside backer until he got here in OTAs, but man, he's got ability. Like he could rush. He did it in college. He's a pretty good edge rusher.
Yeah.
Really,
I mean, you can't, you know this, like you can't have an inside linebacker who's best in this defense, who their best attribute is that they can rush the pass.
No, I get that, but I'm saying it's a nice bonus. It's a nice bonus.
Yeah, great bonus.
I'm interested to see if he can do it because we know White could blitz because that's what he's known for.
Right.
But on your point, they got to be able to tackle.
And drop and know where to be in zones and deliver and all that.
Different from him. Yeah. Remember, Bond never played more than 25% of the snaps on defense. Pretty
right.
So we'll see.
Right. So we saw some interesting movement on the back end. You know, James Bradbury obviously playing on the reserve safeties, and Quinyon Mitchell was sort of moved around a little bit. And who was out? Well, because the Gene was out, right? You saw Ringo and you saw Ricks, and of course, you know, Isaiah Rodgers getting that first nod there, which is what we saw throughout the camp. And I imagine you're going to see a lot of different rotations there.
So Rodgers, you know, again, this is only the first practice, and DeJean, we still don't know where he was going to line up. Now it's, you know, it's if it's, you know, if he's back in, let's see, third week of August, which is maybe he gets in the last preseason game, you know, gets 2-3 weeks of practice before the season starts, maybe a little bit more, maybe gets a little bit more than that. But bottom line is, right now with DeJean, he's got to take those mental reps. He's gonna have to learn. You hate that he's starting off like this, but he'll get the mental reps. And right now, Rodgers is starting. Now, it's real simple. If Mitchell's ready week 1, he's starting. I mean, you don't sit a first round pick just because he's a rookie. That doesn't work that way. If the guy's ready, he starts. There's no debate. There's no argument. That's what happens. This goes on with all 32 teams. And the kids, he was graded as the best cornerback, pure corner for this draft. He's drafted for this scheme, match, carry, deliver. Rodgers is a nice story so far. He showed up in good shape. You love that he's working with the ones that tells you everything you heard or saw in OTAs was real. You know, that's a good sign. But at some point, Mitchell's going to work. I know he rotated in, but at some point he's going to work with the ones, and you'll see in preseason. We're not going to know unless Mitchell starts tearing it up and it's so obvious he's got to start right now, like he starts in a week. But I don't think we're going to know for sure, probably until mid to late August.
I agree. With rookies, that tends to be the case.
Yeah.
And then one day, and, you know, John DeFilippo talked about this with us, you know, how it's decided when a guy is going to make that jump in training camp from maybe second string to first, or when they have to demote a guy who might be on first to second. You know, that there was an interesting conversation there about how that's decided and when the idea comes in and how it's plotted out.
Oh, that's right. Next time we talk to him in August for Chalk, I want to ask him, when did he know Corey Clement? Wow. It was like, wow, this guy might be able to not only make the team contribute. I don't know if we've ever talked to him about Clement.
No, I don't think we have actually. Yeah.
Which is like, we've talked about Nick Foles. That was a great story last fall. We used to talk about Nick because he was with him with 3 teams. Incredible.
Right.
But I'm very curious because it's one of the all-time Eagle stories. Obviously, they're not winning the ball without the guy. But how does an undrafted guy, because I know Howie Roseman's really big on this. He's told agents over the years, if the guy earns it, he's on the. I don't care where he was drafted or you know, whether he's an undrafted free agent. If he's great, well, he's making the team, which tells you it's like, okay, maybe the coaches want, because they want to win, They want to play like the veterans. No, if a guy's great in training camp, he should be on the football team.
Mm-hmm.
Contracts shouldn't matter.
Right.
So
Mitchell did play a little inside, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
Situationally, I think that was specific matchups, which you could see. He's got the nice size and length. And again, he's a rookie. You're trying to see what he can do in certain situations.
They did a 5-1. They did a 5-1-5 in OTAs, and he was the you could call it the dime linebacker.
Yeah,
I mean, he technically was. So I know they did. Who was the guy that who is the safety who the Eagles brought in, and he got Will Parks. Will Parks was a big nickel safety for Vic, I believe. I have to look at my notes, but someone who coached for Vic told me this.
Yep,
that he was there years ago.
Yep,
I just don't remember exactly. I think it was big nickel, but anyway, that's another thing. A lot of teams you and I spoke with before the draft swore like that's the best thing for him to do because he's such a great athlete, and he's mostly been a zone player. Just ask him to play nickel be a big nickel safety because he's got range. But we'll see. We're not going to know that because here's the thing: we don't know about Vic now because DeJean's not practicing. Are they going to stick with whatever plan they had for him originally?
Right. Now, if you would have told me the year they were going to the Super Bowl, Adam, that by the start of the 2024 season, the second string safeties at camp would be James Bradbury and Tristan McCullum, I'd be like, what? Get out of here.
They don't have anyone left.
Here we are.
Yeah, because Mekhi Garner and Sirianni talked Wednesday about it. He's getting he's a corner by trade, but he played some safety last season.
Right.
McCullum now is he's here. Zion's brother.
Yep.
Who funny, the Eagles really like Zion McCullum for that draft when McCullum came out. Who had a great Senior Bowl, but you got Andre Sam, by the way, and we'll see again, as you said, it's only day one. Maybe Andre Sam pushes Garner. Maybe he winds up making the team. He's a guy that played at LSU, so I mean,
both of them did.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll see what happens. That's the thing about day one. You don't know a lot, and also Ricks was not. I'm just looking at my notes here. Yeah, Ringo was ahead of him, just like in OTAs.
Mm-hmm.
But here's another thing: can Ricks push Ringo? Because see, this is a new coaching staff. Ricks was a great story last season, but most of the staff was not here last year.
Yeah, blank slate, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a better way to say it. So, Josh Jobe is going to be a special team. If he makes it, it's special because the guy's a supreme special teams player.
Yep.
And it's going to be important this year with the new kickoff coverage rules.
Heck yeah. I mean, you could make an argument that Jobe might have a better chance to make a team than a Ricks or somebody who's getting maybe a higher run on second, but isn't as much of a special teams maven because those last spots are really reserved for standout special teamers.
Right. And then Zach McPherson's back from his injury, from the torn Achilles.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, he's back. He could play inside or outside. Mario Goodrich is still here. Sean Stevens is an undrafted free agent. Perry Nickerson, who they signed in sort of a young journeyman, is here now. So we'll see. I mean, and Tyler Hall, we mentioned earlier, he's another one of my training camp guys because this guy's based on the person we spoke with the Raiders. This guy spoke very highly of him to the point I'm like, well, I get it that Tom Telesco's a new GM, so he wasn't with him. But man, I don't know. Guy's been, wow. He's only 25. Tyler Hall, Atlanta, the Rams, the Raiders, and now the Eagles. Wow. What team? What don't I know? He's smaller, but what don't these teams like about the guy?
Well, slot. That's the life of a slot. It's like the life of a weak side linebacker. You're on a different. Nick Morrow is going to probably be on 3 more teams before he's finally done with football. I mean, how many teams was he on before he came to the Eagles? Like 2 or 3, right? The Bears, the Raiders.
Yeah.
Wasn't he with somebody else too? I mean,
I just think the Bears and the Raiders, but
he'll probably latch on if he's with somebody now, right? I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know where. I can't remember if he did. But getting back to this, Tyler Hart's going to have a chance here because as you and I've talked about this about Maddox, his contract is very low. It's a 1-year deal with very little guaranteed money. Yes, he's the favorite, no question about it. But let's see what happens, and we're going to look into what their plan was for DeJean. I'm very curious what their plan was, and were they? Remember what Christian Parker's the DB's coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he said that in the OTAs they're going to keep it 1 position. Is that still going to be the case? we'll see.
We shall see. All right, we are now going to go and bring to you that segment with former Eagles quarterbacks coach John DeFilippo. Before we do that, want to pause to hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam just sent you. You'll get a great deal. Not, go visit them at SkyMotorCars.com. All right, keep it here for former Eagles quarterbacks coach of the 2017 champion Philadelphia Eagles, John DeFilippo. So let's start from the top before even everybody reports. Training camp is scripted from like day one to the last day, correct? And how is that done? How is that cultivated? And how long does it take to really come up with a plan for everything you're going to do from day one to the last day?
It takes a lot of preparation. It really does. And really after the first 2 days of training camp is when the training camp gets based upon situational football. And what I mean by that is, the first 2 days you're installing your day one installation. You call it your staples, your staple plays. They're going to be in the playbook. They're going to be in the game plan in some form or fashion, the majority of the plays, and get those in. Thinking back big picture, I always wanted to install the offense 3 times before the season. All right. So how do you accomplish that? So let's scoot back from training camp a little bit. All right. When the players first report phase 1, you're only allowed to meet with them. You're not allowed to take them on the field. You're not allowed. They're only allowed meeting time in the weight room. All right. So I tried to get, it's a little bit tightened up than training camp because training camp's longer. But we'd always have 10 installations, usually between 10 and 11 installations. Mm-hmm. So during that 2 week or 2 and 3 week period, we would do the installation. Then we would go back when OTAs started. All right. And we were on the field a little bit more, mandatory mini camp, and we'd install the offense again. We wouldn't reinstall the formations and motions and all that, but we'd literally go back to day one installation again and start that OTA 1 through whatever. And then you go to training camp. And it's the third time now these guys are hearing it. So for a new player, everyone's like, wow, well, is it different for a quarterback? Sure. Cadence and all that is different. But by the time you get to training camp, if you planned it out well, it should be the third time these guys are hearing it. And they've already done it on the field in spring. So I don't want to say it's not as difficult as it sounds because it is hard, but because of the volume of what it is, there's a lot of plays. And there's a lot of situational football, but hopefully this is the third time everyone's hearing it and they'll be ready to go. But your training camp, to answer your direct question, your training camp is based upon, like I said, after the first 2 days is situational. Usually the third practice, you get into, 3rd and 2 to 3, 3rd and 4 to 6, practice 4, you get 3rd and 7 to 10, 3rd and 11 plus, then you get down in the red zone. Then you become 4 minute, then you become 2 minute, there's always a 2 minute period. You may sneak that in earlier. And then most coaches that I've been with and what I do now is we take a situation or 2 a day. All right. So I teach a situation every day. So because I don't have my seasons in the spring, so I don't have training. My training camp is only 3 weeks long. Mm-hmm. So case in point, we line up to take a knee on the first practice. We teach guys how we're going to do victory formation. Okay. We do quarterback sneak. Those are the first 2 things that we do. And we teach, and the defense has to teach, what they're going to do. So I literally have a chart, like a situational chart, and literally just check the boxes. Okay, we've installed this, we've installed this, hey, we need to get our last plays in one more time. This. So everything is much more structured. There's a little more sense of urgency than there is in the spring, obviously, because you're getting ready for your game. Now it's not cutting time. Guys are competing for jobs. I don't want to say the spring's laid back because it's never laid back in pro football, but you're not playing the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday. You know what I'm saying? There's just not that It's just different. And so, you know, but that's how training camp practices are and the installation is built.
John, on that question, we got a great question from Carl Stevenson. So you had to install a new offense. Let's talk about what happens when you install new offense. You had to do it with Jacksonville, Minnesota,
Cleveland
and where else
and Cleveland.
In Cleveland. Oh yeah, Cleveland. That was your first one. So you've done your research, you have your playbook. As you install, do you ever change the playbook based on what you see when you install it, or is it set in stone? And let's say there's something you don't like. Maybe the guys aren't getting it. Do you adjust based on how they're handling it?
It's out. It's that simple. It's out. If we're not executing it, I'm not a bang a square peg into a round hole kind of guy. I'm just not. Our offenses have changed. Like the 3 times I was a coordinator in the NFL, like they weren't the same. The staples were the same, but they weren't the same. Like you learn how to do things better. You learn, like, I thought we did a lot of cool stuff in Philadelphia, that we brought to Minnesota and to Jacksonville. And there are things I thought we did good in Cleveland that we brought to Philadelphia. I mean, the Eagles offense wasn't the same as the Chiefs. All right. It wasn't. And the way we called things was different. I know, just for simple as this. Okay. Like when Coach Peterson came to the Eagles, right? They were still old school West Coast in terms of how they called their personnel. Like it was, they had an X, a Z, a Y, an H, but they called the Y the tight end. If you had 2 tight ends in the game, it was the U. If you had 3 tight ends in the game, it was I forget what we even called it, but anyway, it was just different. But in most offenses, like in Coach Peterson evolved, there's an X, a Z, an F, a Y, and an H. You can call dice right out of 11 personnel, and it's those 5 letters. You can call dice right out of 12 personnel, and it's those letters. The F is always the adjuster. So offenses evolve as you get new people in the building, as you put your ideas together, as you find out who your players are, and so you're always changing. I just don't believe in like going from, say, Philadelphia to Minnesota like I did. I just don't believe in Xing out the Eagles logo and stamping a Viking helmet on it. I just don't believe that. It's just a philosophical thing. And so I think you have, when you're in spring a little bit, when you're in OTAs and in installation mode, there is a little bit of, okay, let's throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. Okay. This is kind of going to be who we are.
Sure.
All right. And so you might install a little bit more in spring to see what are we about? What are we really good at? What are we not good at? I mean, I've been on teams before where we were great halfback screen teams. I've been on teams where we were horrible halfback screen teams. We were great receiver screen teams. And it's just, you just don't know. And it's trial by error. So I think the great coaches decide that they figure that out sooner than later. And that way you get more reps at the stuff you're good at.
Is there a timetable, John, specifically when you're installing a new offense or you're a new offensive coordinator like Kellen Moore with the Eagles, that you're sort of trying to go by as far as A, when do they understand what we're trying to do as an offense, and B, when can I start adding to it, or, as to your point, taking away? Like, how much you don't want to overreact, right? You don't want to underreact. So what's like a common timetable for each stage?
I would say, I would guess that the Eagles already kind of know what they are right now, because they've been around, and they've been around each other enough in spring to know what they're doing, and that process has already taken place. That takes place when you're on vacation in the summer, when you really hone in on those installations. I mean, I was on vacation in Italy. I was on the Amalfi Coast going into Minnesota's year. I was literally, Tony Sperano and I spent 2 days of my vacation, just doing installations with Tony and going back and forth and sending things back and forth to each other. And you're always talking about that stuff. Once you give yourself a little bit of time to cool off right after mandatory camp and you go on vacation, but once it gets closer, man, it's time to get going. And so I have a feeling the Eagles already know what that is.
But there has to be certain things that Jalen Hurts is going to have to do differently in a new offense, or certain plays, route concepts for the receivers that may not be smooth sailing right from the get-go, right? But as camp will go on, they'll master it and understand it.
Yeah, and that's why the first couple weeks of the season you see lower scoring games. The defense is usually ahead of the offense, and that's probably going to be the case. That's kind of stood the test of time. And there's spring speed, training camp speed, game speed, playoff speed. There is, and it takes time, some of that timing. And if there are new concepts, and I would imagine there's going to be several for Jalen. It's not few. There's going to be several.
All right, big thanks to Flip. Really enjoyed it. If you want to catch the entire interview with John DeFilippo, become a Patreon member. You won't regret it. It was fantastic. He answered questions. He gave even more insight on his time with the Eagles. Always a wonderful time catching up with Coach Flip. And that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.